All right, happy Thursday, everybody. Let's get you ready for your matchups this week by giving you this combined tier list, wide receivers and running backs. We'll go through every game. We'll tell you what we think of every player here. Now, start with the Buffalo Bills-Houston Texans Thursday night game here. It's a tough matchup for these Buffalo Bills against this Houston defense. The Houston defense has allowed the second least amount of points to running backs. Seventh least amount of points to running backs, second least amount of points to wide receivers here. And so, but James Cook, I mean, you still got to start him. He's in the A tier, right? Ty Johnson, you're obviously sitting. Okay, it is a tough matchup again, but the offense light is green for these guys. Of course, James Cook continues to produce in this offense. Khalil Shakir is a little bit more of a shaky start this week, but in the F tier, I think I'm going to give him a meh this week in a tough matchup. Tyrell Shavers, I'm going to give a not start. I'm going to give a sit. Josh Palmer, I'm going to give a sit as well. Again, tough matchup for both position groups in the Buffalo Bills in this particular matchup. Not to mention the Vegas lines for this game, yellow for Buffalo, red for Houston. It is not projected to be a super high scoring game here in this matchup this week. And so, Khalil Shakir is somebody I would probably lean towards starting with all the bye weeks and stuff like that. I'll give Shakir as a start this week. I'm fine with it. I am not starting anybody else besides Cook and Shakir though in that offense. And then Woody Marks in the C tier. I'm just going to go ahead and say start to Woody Marks. It's actually a really good matchup. Buffalo has allowed the second most amount of points to running backs this year. So Woody Marks is definitely somebody for me that's a must start this week. Nick Chubb is a sit for us in the J tier as well. And the wide receiver side of the ball, you got Nico. He's been on a tear. You don't have CJ Stroud. And Nico has been better without CJ Stroud. And so you're going to continue to start Nico. Like, conversations need to maybe be had about that, by the way. Like, why is the alpha wide receiver in Houston better with the backup quarterback? Why is the alpha wide receiver in Arizona better with the backup quarterback?
I think offenses get way too complicated with their starting QBs to the point where they try to get cute with play calling, and then they get to their bench QBs and they're like, just throw it to the best player, just throw it to Nico. Yeah, and that's all they do.
But either way, you start Nico this week, and then Jaden Higgins in the H tier is going to be a sit for us. Next matchup.
All right, we got the Jets and Baltimore. Everybody's excited about this one. Breece Hall, the only start for the Jets. Literally, I can't even talk about anybody else here. Isaiah Davis to AD Mitchell, John Mechie are all sits. Breece, the only relevant fantasy asset that you can comfortably start any given week, and even he has a pretty low floor. Then we got Baltimore with two comfortable starts here. Derrick Henry had a great day against Cleveland, a nice bounce back compared to the first matchup he had against Cleveland earlier this season. Expect him to have a pretty solid day against a pretty depleted Jets defense at this point, who traded away all their best players. Justice Hill, Keaton Mitchell behind him are sits. Zay Flowers in the B tier he's been Zay Flowers, really high floor, like 10 to 12 points. He's not going to screw you. I don't know if he's going to win you a week. I don't know when he's going to win you a week. I know he can, but it's just, when is that going to happen? Hopefully it's against the Jets this week, but if they get the lead early, they might just run the crap out of the ball with Derrick Henry and just end this game as quickly as possible. But behind him is DeAndre Hopkins, a J tier sit.
All right, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati here. I'll start with Pittsburgh. Jaylen Warren, if he does play, I mean, it looks like he's probably going to play. Am I right? I hate everything. Optimistic. Awesome. Great. Cool. I have no luck ever.
Dude,
nothing.
Benson's window is just opened.
Is he going to play this week?
I don't know. His window was open. I don't know if that means he's going to play this week. But
screw me, dude. What the frick? Okay. I'm not going to crash out. Kenneth Gainwell in the G tier, he's a sit. We'll start Jaylen Warren this week if he does play. If Jaylen Warren does not play, you start Kenneth Gainwell as well. It's a good matchup for DK. We're going to have him in the D tier as a start. Roman Wilson in the J tier as a sit. Chicago's allowed the fifth most points to wide receivers this year in fantasy football. Chicago, on the other hand, you're going to start DeAndre Swift in the C tier, but his ceiling's a little bit capped because Monangai has been taking some red zone work there, and he's had a touchdown his last game. But I just don't think you can feel comfortable plugging in Monangai unless you absolutely need to. I'll have him as a sit in the I tier because he is really touchdown or bust. Rome Odunze in the B tier is a start. DJ Moore and Luther Burden both sits for us. It is a good matchup against Pittsburgh for these wide receivers. So DJ Moore, you actually could do as a plug and play flex if you have bye week trouble this week. I'll put him as a Matt, and I'll put Luther Burden as a sit in the I tier. But again, Pittsburgh's allowed the third most points to wide receivers this year in fantasy football. So good matchup for Rome Odunze. But you never know if it's going to be Rome Odunze and DJ Moore or Luther Burden or Olamide Zaccheaus or Cole Kmet or Colston Loveland or DeAndre Swift. So it's like, okay, it makes it really hard to start the guys in this offense, even when they have great matchups. But definitely comfortable starting Swift and Odunze this week.
What to do with Henderson and Ramondre.
Woof.
Ramondre's back from his injury, so I think we're going to learn a lot about what Henderson's rest of the season outlook is going to be with Ramondre in that offense. Did he do enough? Did he show enough to Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels for the 2 weeks that Ramondre was out for them to say, okay, yeah, you get 70+% of the snaps and you get 80+% of the touches in the backfield there. I think with what Henderson has been doing the last couple of weeks and the fact that this is legitimately like the best case scenario matchup that you could dream of for both of these guys, I think I'm going to give you the green light to start Henderson, and I'm going to give you the green light to start Ramondre. We've got B tier for Henderson, D tier for Ramondre. I mean, there is no offense that isn't producing at an elite level across the board against this defense in Cincinnati. This is historically one of the worst defenses we have ever seen, like legitimately ever seen. It was as bad as we thought it was going to be heading into this season. And then for the wide receivers, you got Stephon Diggs, who has really settled in, just getting consistent volume. I mean, way, way, way more consistent than you saw in the first third of the year. And Drake May obviously has been just phenomenal. So we'll go C tier for Diggs. I think he's going to have a pretty good day. And then Kayshon Boutte, we're going to go meh for him in the D tier. It's kind of touchdown or bust generally with Boutte, but again, with them playing Cincinnati, I think you have to give almost everybody in this offense the nod. We will go sit with Matt Collins, though he's even more inconsistent than Boutte. On the flip side, no Jamar Chase this week for Cincinnati. So Chase Brown, C tier, definitely going to start him. Now, one thing that you're going to want to look at here is that New England actually has allowed the least amount of points to fantasy running backs this season. So it might be a tougher one for Chase Brown, but you still got to start him because they are shorthanded. P. Ryan behind him's a sit. And then T. Higgins, the only relevant wide receiver to talk about here in the A tier because he's the last man standing between him and Jamar Chase this week because Jamar Chase spit on someone for $500,000. Middling matchup against New England's pass defense. They're kind of middle of the road in terms of the fantasy production that they allow. I would expect a pretty big week from T. Flacco's going to feed the crap out of them.
The New York Giants play the Detroit Lions this week, and for the Giants, there's one player in this matchup we're comfortable starting. It's Wan'Dale Robinson in the D tier. Tracy and Singletary continue to split work, and they're not going to have a ton of touchdowns like they've had in the last couple weeks. Not to mention, it is a bad matchup for them. The Lions are great against running backs. I would not be starting either of these guys this week. F and H tiers for Tyron Tracy and Devin Singletary. And Wan'Dale in the D tier, Hodgins in the G tier. Start Wan'Dale this week. Now for Detroit, great matchup for them. For the running backs, it's probably wheels up. I would say Jahmyr Gibbs is a start. I would say if there was ever going to be a matchup for the rest of the season where you were comfortable starting Montgomery, it would be this one. So I'm going to say start Montgomery. I'm going to start both these guys, Jahmyr Gibbs in the S tier, David Montgomery in the F tier, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown in the S tier for the wide receivers, and Jameson Williams in the C tier. All four of these Lions for the wide receiver and running back position, I am putting in my lineups this week. J-Mo's been on a tear recently, and he's been scoring touchdowns. David Montgomery has been hit or miss, but it's a great matchup for him, and you've got the elite guys. I'm starting every Lion this week I can, and I'm starting Wan'Dale Robinson in this matchup.
Then we got Minnesota and Green Bay. I think this is going to continue to be a conversation every single week until we see J.J. McCarthy not suck. But Aaron Jones, let's talk about the running backs first. Aaron Jones, I still believe, is firmly the number one option there. He had like 11 points last week, and Jordan Mason actually ended up having 10 points as well, but only 6 carries to Aaron Jones, 16 carries and 6 targets. It's a 75-25 split between those two guys, and Aaron Jones has the upper hand. So start for Aaron Jones in the D tier, sit for Jordan Mason in the I tier. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. They both had the same amount of points last week. Not all points are created equal. Jordan Addison was at 2 points all day until the last play of the last drive for the Minnesota Vikings, where he got like a 1-yard touchdown pass from J.J. McCarthy. Jefferson, you have to start every single week. We're never going to tell you to sit Jefferson ever. He's going to be in the B tier. He does take a knock because he is in the B tier, not the S tier. But you have to start Jefferson. He gets the most consistent target volume there. Jordan Addison is a different story here. While he salvaged his day last week, since McCarthy has been back healthy, which is 3 weeks, Addison has scored 8, 6, and 10 points, one of which was salvaged by a touchdown. And his targets have been 4, 11, and 7. So I literally, like, when you're talking about the wide receivers here in Green Bay's offense, you don't feel any better. I'm going meh with Jordan Addison in the F tier. You don't feel any better starting Jordan Addison than you do starting Romeo Doubs for Green Bay, who we have ranked in the D's tier. He's getting the same amount of target volume. He had like 5 drops last week, but he still managed to produce, I think, in double digits. Christian Watson had 20-plus points because he had 2 touchdowns. We're going to list Christian Watson as a meh. He's a very boom-bust guy, deep threat, where he's going to get like contested catch opportunities any given week, but you don't feel great about starting him. Matthew Golden going to be a sit in the I tier. Talking about the running backs, though, for Green Bay, Emmanuel Wilson's just the next man up. Josh Jacobs most likely to miss this week and maybe a couple more weeks after this with that knee injury, a knee contusion. He's not going to go on IR, but until then, Emmanuel Wilson, who actually had a goal line carry, he was productive against the Giants. I would expect him to be a pretty solid start in what is a neutral matchup against Minnesota's run defense. Behind him, Chris Brooks is a sit.
All right, I'm ready to lose this matchup. Indianapolis, Kansas City. at Arrowhead. Yeah, it is a bad matchup for the running backs and wide receivers in this Indianapolis offense.
Yeah,
Problem is,
we're screwed.
You can't sit Jonathan Taylor or Michael Pittman in this matchup with your fantasy rosters right now. So you start them both. S tier for Taylor, B tier for Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce in the F tier, Josh Downs in the G tier. I've got them as mez because one of them will have a good game. I don't know which one. And I don't feel comfortable starting either of them, to be honest with you. On the Kansas City side of the ball, I do feel comfortable starting Kareem Hunt in the D tier. No DeForest Buckner for the Indianapolis Colts means that run defense is not as good as it could be, but I do think Kareem Hunt, without Isaiah Pacheco there, is going to score a touchdown almost every single game. And so that's why I'm starting him in the D tier, Brashard Smith in the J tier. And then from a wide receiver perspective, I will only start Rashee Rice in this offense from here on out, probably, or feel comfortable doing it. I've got him in the A tier. G tier for Brown, G tier for Worthy. Don't feel comfortable starting either of these guys. The Vegas lines for this game are high. I mean, I will say that. Green for Kansas City, yellow for Indy. But so while it should be a good, high-scoring game, you really only feel good starting the positional ones in this game. And outside of that, you're not feeling good starting the twos in this game.
So Seattle and Tennessee, we would expect this one to be a bloodbath. There is a potential, I think, for these running backs to be productive in this offense in Seattle. Walker coming off of a pretty decent game, I believe, against the Rams. Yeah, he had 20 points, 16 carries. Again, 50% snap share. He's going to split it evenly with Charbonnet. Again, you're just seeing another one of those vintage Kenneth Walker weeks where you're like, okay, yeah, that upside is pretty nice. We're going to have him in the C tier this week because, again, if Seattle establishes a lead and gets that lead very quickly in this matchup, you're probably looking at Walker and Charbonnet just getting fed the ball most of the second half as they just run out the clock. So we'll go start for Walker, and I'll go meh for Zach Charbonnet. But if you have to start him, I'm totally okay with it. He's just, again, both of these guys are going to have pretty low floors. I do think this is specifically a pretty good week, pretty good opportunity for Walker to have another good day. Then you got the wide receivers. It's JSN and then Shaheed and Cup behind him. JSN S tier must start every single week. Rashid Shaheed H tier, Cooper Cup I tier. Both of them will be sits. Again, green lights pretty much across the board for the running backs and wide receivers in Seattle's offense this week. Tennessee, literally all reds. Tyjae Spears, Tony Pollard, Van Jefferson, Alec Iamaner. We ranked them for you guys. You're welcome. None of them are startable. They're all awful. This offense is abysmal. This offense is so bad. And Seattle's defense is one of the better ones in the league in pass defense and run defense. It's just a bad combo across the board. Don't start anybody in Tennessee.
All right, going to the Jacksonville-Arizona matchup this week. The running backs in this matchup. Neutral matchup for Jacksonville on both the wide receiver and running back portions here. I would say ETN is a start in the B tier, and Bashal Tutin is a meh in the D tier until we see multiple weeks of Tutin kind of, when Tutin went out last week and ETN came back in, ETN played really well. And so I don't know what's going to happen there. And so but I am more comfortable with ETN this week. I'm going to say mez for both Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington there again until we kind of figure that out. They've both been kind of hit or miss recently. Arizona, it's a tough matchup for Bam Knight and Michael Carter. Bam Knight, I'm going to say meh. Michael Carter, I'm going to say sit. And then Michael Wilson, I'm going to say start in the D tier. We should probably say start for Bam Knight. I mean,
I would start Bam Knight.
Okay, yeah.
Because DeMarcado is injured.
That's right. That's why I was like, we have him in the D tier. So we do practice to probably start Bam Knight and Michael Wilson here, and we're going to sit Greg Dortch as well. So again, in this matchup, not feeling super comfortable with the backups, but feeling pretty good with the starters here.
Gosh, there's so many gross matchups this week. Cleveland and Vegas. Ugh. Shedeur Sanders in his little 2-quarter stint that he had against Baltimore looked awful. Now you do have a better defensive matchup against Vegas this week. Maybe he can do something in the air, but really the only guy offensively that you're comfortable with in Cleveland is Quinshon Judkins, and even he has a really low floor. He's touchdown or bust, honestly, right now, and as bad as this offense is. So they got to get the ball into the red zone, and he's got to get those end zone carries. I do think this is a good opportunity for him. Beyond him, Dylan Sampson's a sit. Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman, the top two options, both in the H tier. They do have green lights. Vegas has allowed the second most amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this season. I would not be shocked if all of that just goes to Njoku and Fannin instead. Never really know, but I do not feel good starting either of those receivers. Vegas, you've got Ashton Jency in the D's tier. You're looking at one of the better run defenses in the NFL. Red lights across the board for the running backs in Vegas going up against Cleveland's front. But we're still going to start Ashton Jency. He's still going to get plenty of volume. And what we would expect probably to be a rock fight. Raheem Mostert behind him, J tier sit. Trey Tucker coming off of a solid game against Dallas, which was pretty expected if you needed to start him with all the injuries that have been going on. He had 14 points on 8 targets, 4 receptions, and a touchdown against Dallas. Cleveland, if they want to have success against Cleveland, I think they're going to have to pass the ball more, even though Geno loves throwing picks. They don't have as good of a pass defense. It's still a good pass defense, but it's not as locked down as their run defense is, Cleveland. So Trey Tucker, F tier. I'll list him as a meh. He's a guy that if you absolutely have to with buys and injuries, you can go for it and start him. Tyler Lockett is going to be in the I tier as a sit.
All right, a decent matchup here, Philadelphia and Dallas. Let's hope it turns into a Dallas matchup and not a Philadelphia matchup here. Philadelphia, you're putting Saquon in the A tier. It's a good matchup for him. It's a good matchup for the wide receivers. You're starting Saquon in the A tier, Devontae Smith in the B tier, and A.J. Brown in the C tier. All three of these guys plug them into your lineups this week pretty easy. Dallas, on the other hand, neutral matchups for them. The Philly defense isn't as like gangbusters as it has been in the past. Javonte's a start in the B tier. Please, Javonte. CeeDee Lamb in the S tier is a start, and George Pickens in the B tier is a start. And George Pickens, I mean, he's getting to the point where he could be in the A tier every week. Mm-hmm. And so, again, Saquon, Smitty, A.J. Brown, Javonte, Lamb, and Pickens are all C tier or higher here. You're starting all 6 of these guys in your lineups this week. Plug them in. Feel good about it. You want guys in this matchup.
So a really popular, sexy thing to do right now is, Darnell Mooney is a sneaky start against New Orleans. Hey, I tried that, and it didn't work earlier this season with no Drake London, because everyone's like, okay, Drake London's hurt, Kirk Cousins is back. You saw what Kirk Cousins did with Mooney. We literally saw this. There was a carbon copy of this example earlier this season. Week 8, there was no Penix, and there was no Drake London. It was Darnell Mooney as the number 1 receiver there, and guess how many targets and points Darnell Mooney had? 4 targets, 1 reception, 11 yards, 2.1 points. I don't think there's any guarantee that Mooney's going to be productive in this game. I will list him as a meh with 4 teams on bye this week and multiple injuries that we suffered from last week. But if you can help it, I would not be starting Darnell Mooney if you can help it. Behind him, David Sills is a sit not rankable. Bijan Robinson, S tier, must start every single week. I would anticipate in a matchup against New Orleans, whose defense is not very great, that they just try to put the ball in Bijan's hands as much as possible, manage Kirk Cousins, and Bijan has a more productive day than anybody else in that offense. Algier behind him is going to be still a sit in the G tier. Alvin Kamara is the number 1 back for New Orleans in the D's tier. He's been very inconsistent this season, not showing that high upside that we've come to know and love with Kamara for the last 8 years. But this is a good matchup for him against Atlanta's run D, who's allowed the 4th most amount of points to fantasy running backs this season. Devin Neal behind him in the J tier is a sit. Chris Olave, C tier, must start every single week. He's looking really, really solid. Moving from Rattler to Shuck has not made a difference in his production. He's going to continue to be very productive. Brandon Cooks behind him is a sit.
And then Tampa Bay, Los Angeles Rams here. Look, between Tucker and White, I think people are going to say, you have to start Tucker, you have to start Tucker. I would not be surprised this week if Rashad White was the more productive guy again. Rashad Tucker had 2 touchdowns in this game, one of them being a long touchdown. Rashad White was getting kind of those 8 points on 10-yard run, 5-yard reception, 10-yard run. And so I think they're both going to be productive, and I really don't feel super good starting either of them this week. So F and H tier for these guys, both mess for me this week. Good luck guessing. And then, unless you're me and you have to start Rashad White. And then wide receiver-wise, we're going to go with Mecca Ibuka in the A tier, Tez Johnson in the G tier. Start for Ibuka, meh for Tez Johnson. Neutral matchups for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on both positions this week. Los Angeles Rams, you're going to start Kyren Williams in the A tier. He's been very consistent. You're going to sit Blake Corum in the H tier. Great matchup for them. Tampa Bay's allowed the 6th most amount of points to running backs this year. And then in the wide receiver position, Puka and Devontae Adams, S tier and B tier respectively. Both starts. Neutral matchup for them. Good Vegas light. Good offense light. You're starting both of these guys in this matchup against Tampa Bay.
Then Monday night, we got Carolina and San Fran, which honestly might be a little bit interesting. Rico Dowdle is going to be in the A tier. I mean, he's a top 10 running back rest of the season. He's getting so much volume. He looks so explosive. He looks phenomenal. Neutral matchup in terms of the run defense that San Fran has this season. Again, they're so depleted defensively that you are going to see a lot of fantasy points available to whatever team they're going to go up against. So I'd expect a good day from Rico. Start for him, and then sit, obviously, for Chuba Hubbard behind him. He's getting less than 20% snap share every single week. Ted McMillan coming off a 33-point game against the Falcons. Will he have 33 points again? I don't know, but this is a green light for him in terms of the matchup. 7th most amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this season for San Fran's defense. I would expect, as long as Bryce Young doesn't turn into a pumpkin like he does anytime he doesn't play the Falcons, I think Ted McMillan could have a good day. So Xavier Legette behind him is going to be in the I tier. I'm not really believing in Xavier Legette replicating what he did last week. That really is, I think, the Atlanta Falcons effect. With Bryce Young, I don't think Legette is going to do this again. And then Jalen Coker, I tier as well. I mean, either one of these guys are going to be sits. So on the flip side, you got CMC, S tier, must start every single week. He's up there with JT. B-Rob sit behind him. Neutral matchup for the running backs here. And then you've got the wide receivers, Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. I have a little secret to tell you. I don't know if you knew that CMC and George Kittle are the top receiving options. They are the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, 1A and 1B. at the wide receiver position, wide receivers for Brock Purdy, not Jennings and Ricky Pearsall. So Pearsall and Jennings are both going to be in the G tier and D tier respectively. Neither of them had very productive games last week with Purdy coming back because, again, Purdy just feeds the crap out of CMC and George Kittle most of the day. And on top of that, Carolina does have a pretty good passing defense. They've allowed the third least amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this season. So you might see a really good day for CMC, a decent day for Kittle, and probably another so-so week for Jennings and Pearsall. Maybe one of them has a good day. That's why I'm going to give you a meh for both of them, but I don't feel good about starting either of them.
All right, we'll put the combined tier list of wide receivers and running backs up here for about 20 seconds at the end of the video. So take a look at that. Drop a like to support the channel if you enjoy this video every week. Your like helps us put out this content. We appreciate you guys. Good luck this week. We will see you next week.